Well, game one's going to be rough. Jared does have some good tools in the sideboard to clean up the matchup here, but this is going to be rough game one. We've seen this deck, Boss Slide, just be way too fast for removal-oriented decks.
I was curious to see who was going to be playing first, and it will be Boettcher. So Dollinger is going to play a Mountain and a Rakdos Cackler right away. We know exactly what's going on here, which is the beatdowns, and we'll see if Boettcher can stop them quickly enough. Boettcher with a Swamp, just going to pass a turn back here. Dollinger going to draw a card. Of course, the big question in Boss Slide is, does the Boss Slide player have a second and or third land? And that's kind of where you want to stop them.
Exactly. You want to go one drop on one drop on two, and then kind of stop.
Yep. So that'll be the big question here for Steven. You see the Cackler. Looks like he may start off attacking there. Could play maybe a card like Dragon's Mantle to try to cantrip. It's a little bit risky, though.
I think that he should play almost any other one drop over trying to Dragon's Mantle against 2 open mana here.
That is Legion's Loyalist. Now this will be a copy of Bioblight, I imagine, to take down the Cackler. We'll see. Easy Jared's going to take a look at Legion Loyalist, make sure he knows exactly what that does and if it's worth killing or not. But there is a Bioblight to take care of the Cackler. 1 damage will come across. Boettcher's going to go down to 19. And what this feels like to me is that Dollinger doesn't have a second land, and he does not.
And the second land is really important against a deck like Black because you need to outpace their removal, and you need to be flooding the board to do that. So they can handle 1 creature a turn. When you start casting 2 creatures a turn, then their 2 mana, 3 mana removal spells are much less efficient. The pacing of the game this way, his removal spells are going to be quite good for him.
Attack here for 1 into the Nightfell Spectre. You saw Boettcher play Nightfell Spectre last turn. No Lifebane Zombies in his main deck. Players have been really trying to decide which is the best way to go. Here's a Titan Strength before damage. So Boettcher's going to take 4. You can see Dollinger taking a look at a Necrotic Crusader. I have to imagine it's going to go towards the bottom. But Lifebane Zombie versus Nightfell Spectre has been a big debate among Black Devotion players. But Nightfell Spectre in this matchup is so much better than the Zombie.
Not only is Lifebane Zombie just bad in general against a deck like Boss Slide, Nightveil is particularly good for Jared because he has red mana in his deck. So he can start flipping over just random 1/1s and 2/2s out of Steven's deck, which don't seem like much, but they allow him to block.
Here comes the Spectre right away, so that thing's not staying back on defense. There's a Lightning Strike. Can cast that, too.
Yeah, no, the Black Splash Red version of Black Devotion rather, has a much better matchup against red decks typically just because Nightveil is so much more dangerous.
The Nightfell Spectre does join the party here, and already Dollinger is behind the 8-ball.
I remember the first time that I played against Black Splash Red, there was a spot where against a normal Black Devotion deck, I was happy to ignore the Nightveil.
Okay.
Just not thinking about it.
Sure.
And then the first card they flip over is a Mortars with 6 lands in play. And I'm like, oh, well, that was... this matchup plays out a little differently. Okay. Gotcha.
Another copy of Legion Loyalist here. And we are attacking. You have to imagine this will be a Titan Strength yet again at the ready. The big question is Boettcher interested in making this exchange?
Could be a Maka.
That's true. Did forget about that, old boy. Boettcher says, no blocks, thank you. I will take 2. Will there be something here to follow up? There will be a Fire Drink Crusader before passing the turn back over to Boettcher. Boettcher down to 13. Dollinger is 18. And Boettcher will take his 4th turn here.
And very well equipped to race here is Jared. I mean, he's going to look at live cards here. He can Lightning Strike a Fire Drink Crusader, which is another swing.
Oh, the Satyr. Jackal Pup.
Plus. Not a mere pup.
That's true.
Pup plus.
How many creatures does Boettcher want to attack with here? He's going to fire in with both of them, so it looks to be a racing situation. And Boettcher does have a copy of Grey Merchant in his hand as well, so he might be on the hunt for lands here, as there'll be 2 triggers. Dollinger's going to go down to 14. There's a mountain, and there's a mountain, so lands are no longer a problem.
And now Jared has a 2nd red mana, which means the 2 Nightveils are going to be much more productive.
Yeah.
Now he can flip over 2 spells a turn and cast them.
Some mana here from Jared. There is a copy of Pack Rat with the ability to cast a Lightning Strike at will. And this just demonstrates the power of Nightveil Spectre. Such a good card.
Yeah, this matchup, it is... The extent to which it's better than Lifebane Zombie cannot be exaggerated.
In comes everybody. Boettcher going to cast a Lightning Strike on the Fire Drink Crusader, I imagine. Not a bad choice there.
If Jared let him get into combat here, it's potentially a bit of a misstep, because if there's a Maka, this turn gets pretty rough. But it appears as though he is safe.
You love the Maka.
I do.
You and the Maka have done some
Really good
together.
working relationship.
Yeah.
2 good deals. You know?
Is a 4-mana 3/3 a good deal? Is it? By 2014 standards.
All right. It appears as if Jared's blocking here, I assume he did not allow Steven to go into combat.
I imagine that is the case, as this would be a very poor block due to Battalion. So I assume that both players have communicated their actions, and we will move forward accordingly here. Otherwise, Jared has made a horrible error.
Yeah.
So Dollinger going to tap some mana here. Looks like he may want a Maka or Titan Strength. Let's see what it's going to be. That's the Titan Strength. It'll be on the unblocked creature. Just trying to force through some damage. Madcap skills to the top card, and Steven leaves that on top. Looks like relatively quickly. It is to the side, so he might still be deciding. But the trade will occur, and now 4 damage will come across. Boettcher's going to go down to 9. There will be another 1-drop here in just a moment. So there's a Foundry Denizen. And that Titan Strength will go to the graveyard, as that is not an enchant creature. Boettcher still getting aggressive, attacking here. And I believe Jared does have a Grey Merchant of Asphodel in his hand. Madcap. And there's the Mountain, and there's the Grey Merchant. So that'll be for the full amount there. 3, 6, 7, and 8. Jared's going to pick up Steven's Permanent's hand and back to him. And Boettcher's going to win game number 1 here with Black-Red Devotion over Boss Sly.
Really needs the land on turn 2.
Yes.
And if you can't outpace Jared's removal, you're not going to win the game. So you need to be flooding the board. On the play, maybe you can get away with going 1-drop, turn 2, 1-drop, miss my land drop. But on the draw, that's a death sentence.
Sideboard time, and you've got Boss Sly in front of you, so let's see what Steven has access to.
Peak Eruption, a Harnessed by Force, 4 copies of Skullcrack, a Seismic Stomp, a Searing Blood, a Mizium Mortars, a Lightning Strike, 2 copies of Eidolon of the Great Revel, 2 Magma Sprays, and a Mutavault. I think that he's going to want to bring in the additional Lightning Strike because Jared has shown Nightveil Spectre. And beyond that, you know, I never know how to feel about 4 copies of Skullcrack in the sideboard in this matchup. It can answer Grey Merchant, but you also need to make sure you have enough creatures to overwhelm their removal. The same thing is true of Harnessed by Force. It has moments of being powerful against Desecration Demon, but there's no guarantee that's the case. And if you're playing a game where they have, let's say, Nightveil Spectre and removal spells, then Harnessed by Force can be quite bad. So I think you're going to see the Lightning Strike for certain. I think there's a good argument to be made for the 2 copies of Eidolon of the Great Revel as well. And then beyond that, does he want Skullcrack? Does he want the 1 copy of Harnessed by Force? That's open for debate. I think my instinct would be to leave all 5 in the sideboard, but it's possible Steven's going to bring them in.
Other side of things here for Boettcher, and this is, of course, the big thing to check. I always do the Freakus Cure Drown in Sorrow check here. There are 2 copies of Drown in Sorrow, so this could get ugly.
This card is pretty much impossible for Boss Sly to beat. There were very few copies of it in the Invitational that weekend. It's part of the reason that Tom was able to win that tournament. People have started to add more copies to their lists, although we still see it absent sometimes. But Jared, taking no risks in this tournament, 2 copies, he is ready to go for this matchup.
He also has 2 copies of Variable Sky of the Dead, 3 Duress, 3 Life Vein Zombie, 2 Doomblade, a Siren Insanity, a Dark Patrol, and a copy of Rakdos' Return. In addition to those 2 copies of Drown in Sorrow, I expect to see 2 Doomblades, maybe some number of Duress. I don't expect the full 3, and that's really about it.
I wouldn't even go near Duress. I don't think Jared has any cards bad enough to really take. I mean, he has 8 cards, I guess, that have to go out, which are the Underworld Connections and Thoughtseizes.
Yeah, I guess you can make an argument for Connections, Thoughtseize, that's 8, and then the 1 copy of Rakdos' Return, that being 9.
Sure. Yeah, Rakdos' Return is not great in this matchup either.
But I don't think that I don't think that he has to board out Underworld Connections. I don't think that he has to board out Thoughtseize. Like, I agree that, you know, some combination of those cards will come out. Maybe he just slices it to 2 and 2 of each of them and moves forward accordingly. We'll see. He certainly knows his deck quite well.
I think it's really hard for Underworld Connections to be good in a game that you weren't already winning. I think there's more merit to keeping in copies of Thoughtseize. I think Thoughtseize can still be good, but Underworld Connections, I think, is very hard to cast.
I mean, you know, Tom, of course, did win the Season 2 Invitational with Boss Sly. He also played it in a modern PE down in Louisiana.
Just putting some Goblin Guides, right?
Yeah.
Some Bolts.
Yeah, maybe some Vexing Devils. Who knows?
Yeah, call it a day.
Tom, I know, is working on that deck, and you know, chances are we'll probably see him play it in a Modern Premier event in one of our Open Series because we are bringing Modern to the Open Series beginning in Baltimore in 2 short weeks.
Yeah, this is exciting stuff, and it's going to be throughout the rest of 2014. We're going to have these available. They're going to be starting every Sunday at 10 a.m. There's going to be 4 invites to the Invitational, giving out $5,000 in cash prizes, Open Series points to all competitors, additional prize support beyond that too. So really exciting stuff. We wanted to bring Modern events to the Open Series without having it interfere with Standard or Legacy. So every Sunday, we're going to be starting those, like you said, in Baltimore. Now, it's not going to be covered by us or any of the other commentary teams. The Sunday is still going to be devoted to Legacy from a coverage side. But if you're a Modern enthusiast, if you don't have much of a Legacy collection, these are going to be available for you starting in the Baltimore Open later this month.
I'm excited too about these. I mean, I love Modern Magic. There's a Grand Prix in Worcester, actually going to be in this building a couple weeks from now that I'm going to fly to.
You're going to go?
Against my better judgment, I'm probably going to go.
You have no buys, dude.
Don't need buys. Don't need buys.
You can't.
Look, either you're going to win or you're not.
Well, that is reductively true, but there are factors that influence whether or not you win or lose, and buys are one of those things.
Either you're going to win or you're going to lose. Either it's my weekend or it's not. Both of my Grand Prix top
Do you buy lottery tickets because you're either going to win the lottery or not?
I don't want to talk about what I do in my own time.
It's like
okay.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about what I do with my money and my lottery tickets.
Okay.
Yes, to answer your question, I do.
It either happens or it doesn't. Like
Correct.
everything else in life, it's 50-50.
Both my Grand Prix top 8s came with 1 buy.
Okay.
I don't need buys.
I have never played in a Grand Prix with 0 buys. Even my first Grand Prix I won a trial for.
Oh, wow, you're so good.
Well, I'm traveling to Australia to play in a Grand Prix with no buys. So that's
and you're
gonna be
judging me?
Well, that's also a vacation. Unless you're really coming to Worcester to see whatever it is that goes on here, then there's sort of a different thing going on.
I'll be, having some fun with the friends.
I'm not saying it's not fun.
spells.
It's obviously, Charlie Magic tournaments, no matter what, with friends is fun. I'm just saying you can't really compare going to Sydney to Worcester in terms of, it's the same Magic-related decision.
Look, I get it. And all you're doing right now is making a bunch of sense, as Jared is going to take a mulligan.
I mean, you do you. You know what I mean? I'm not,
I always do.
However you want to do this is fine.
Look, I'm still pretty torn. There's a PTQ that weekend, and then there's a Grand Prix in Worcester, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Where's the PTQ?
Eugene, Oregon, which is 4.5 hours from where I live.
Yep.
And I don't mind driving, I don't mind driving 4.5 or 5 hours or whatever. I don't
South
care.
of Portland, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't care about that. I mean, that's how long I drove to PTQs in college, so that doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just deciding, what's going to be the more fun weekend.
Is Eugene a fun college town? I've never been.
I've never been either.
Okay.
Never been either. I think that's right where University of Oregon is.
Yeah, University of Oregon is. Yeah.
So I imagine it's, pretty sweet because, the Pacific Northwest is sweet.
Yeah.
It's just the bigger question I have right now is, do I want to fly across the country for another weekend? That's the big question because, we do this a lot.
Yeah. No, it's relevant. I mean, it kind of cuts both ways. There's some part of you that's like, I don't really want to do this again, and then some part of you that's like, I do this all the time, so it's not really a cost.
Yeah, so it's not like a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at on it right now.
I have the same conflict all the time when it comes to the travel.
The longer I wait, the cheaper the flight will be. So
That's how that works.
I should probably just keep hemming and hawing over it for another couple of days.
You should wait until the last possible moment and then decide to go to the Grand Prix.
I agree.
That's the best thing you can do.
That's probably what I will do.
Okay.
Probably pull the trigger in a week and a half. You saw Steven keep his hand pretty quickly while Jared did send his back pretty fast. You have to imagine he's looking for a copy of Drown in Sorrow here.
On the draw, Jared has to mulligan pretty aggressively. Draws where the first play of the game is something like Nightveil Spectre may not be keepable. So he's got to find something that has some amount of interaction on the second turn.
There have been some vulgar words on Twitter about me getting my buttocks to the Grand Prix. So apparently I should attend now. What do you think?
Well, if that's how you're going to make your decisions. If Twitter told you to jump off a bridge, Not to be like your folks or whatever.
What if there's a lot of people on Twitter tell me to do it, and then it gets favorited and retweeted a bunch? Then do I do it?
Well, that's still the same thing.
Oh. Okay. Jared looking at 6, that was an eye roll.
Yeah.
He did not like those 6 cards. It's a tough matchup on the draw for him, no matter how you slice it.
Well, he does have the upside of Drown in Sorrow is likely to be game over even if he goes to 5 cards.
Yep. He's going to send it back and go down to 5 here.
So he's still got a shot, for sure, even if Steven has a good hand.
Of course, you guys can join in on the conversation. if you'd like, at SCG Live, hashtag SCGWOR all weekend long as we make our way through our 10-round Standard Open and what's likely to be a 9-round Legacy Open. Last time we were in the area, we saw Russ Merriam almost go back-to-back. He won our Standard Open with Mono Blue Devotion before being upended by David Shields in the finals, Death and Taxes versus Elves. It was a lot of fun to watch.
And a big upset, too.
Yes.
I mean, of all the matches that Ross had, for that one to be the one that upended him was quite surprising.
We'll, of course, be talking about M15 cards at length. Now the entire set has been spoiled. We also got Grand Prix Orlando, Star City Games Game Night, Mount of Premier IQs. We've got a double Open Series weekend coming in a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to be awesome. There's just a lot of things happening with Star City Games right now.
They did me a solid on that one, too. It's not like I love Indianapolis.
Hard not to.
Don't get me wrong, but
you're going to Jersey.
I'm going back home.
How far is Edison from like Somerset or from where you grew up?
Edison is about a 15 or 20 minute drive from where I grew up.
Okay. I've never done the Edison show before. I've only done Somerset, which I'm a big fan of.
Well, it's like basically the same area. I would be surprised if it was a different hall.
Okay. Jared is keeping. It doesn't look like he's thrilled with his keep, but he's keeping. As Steven will play a 1-drop, and it will be a Legion Loyalist.
Good old Raging Goblin.
That might be a little telling about the strength of his hand if that's where he's beginning things. Here's a Temple of Malice from Boettcher. Going to leave the top card on top. Looks like relatively quickly.
If he has an Ash Zealot or an Eidolon on 2, then this hand's still excellent.
Actually going to put it towards the bottom here now. See if Steven has a second land in this game. I think that's the really important thing right now, and he does. And this is a Madcap skills. So in for 4, we're going to go.
Not the biggest fan of Madcap skills post-board against Jared. He's not really looking to block. He's looking to kill everything that Steven casts. Mm-hmm. And so Madcap skills is unlikely to be good. Although with Jared on 5 cards, he may not have a removal spell on turn 2, and then this represents a lot of damage.
There's a Pack Rat. Boettcher thought about playing another copy of Temple of Malice, but opted against it. Steven with a 3rd land here, so land's not the problem.
Just ignore me. Madcap skill is going to be good in this game.
Is another Madcap here? It is. All right. We're moving in. This is going to be an attack here for 3, 6, 7. Looks like more than that. 8, 9, 10. Boettcher's going to go down to 5.
But Steven, in his own way, has kind of mulliganed to 5 as well here if Jared's able to find a removal spell.
Heck, even a land to be able to double block?
Well, that's a risky play, of course.
Oh, of course.
But it might be good enough to get it done here.
Steven does take a draw and untap. Plays a mountain. Let's see what we have here. He's tapping 3 mana very quickly. This is a Harness by Force. And Boettcher says, I'll take my Pack Rat back, and that's going to do it. So Steven Dollinger is going to win game number 2 here over Jared Boettcher. Boss Sly and Black Red Devotion are going to game 3.
That's also the first time I've ever seen someone threaten a Pack Rat.
Oh, yeah. Give me that 1/1. Thank you much.
So we had Reed Duke in round 1, Nykthos through Night Veil Spectre to Pack Rat a bunch.
Okay.
I've never seen that before in the Mono Blue Devotion.
Okay.
Never seen someone threaten a Pack Rat.
I'll take that, thank you.
So he has brought in the Harness by Force. We have the answer to that question.
Yeah, this card normally comes in against Desecration Demon, which it can be good against in certain situations.
It has moments of being good. It also has a lot of moments of being bad. So I've had a really bad experience playing Threaten effects against Mono Black Devotion. Now, Boss Sly is so fast that the opponent will have to just tap out on turn 4 a fair bit of the time, and then it can be powerful. But because either they have draws where they just kill everything you play, and then having that is not very good, or they can have a Mutavault up, a mana and a Mutavault to sacrifice to the demon.
Yep.
These have created problems in my history playing Active Treason and Threaten and so forth against Desecration Demon.
Players are going to shuffle up here for our 3rd and final game of this particular match, but we will talk about here very quickly about the Dual Open Series weekend where you are heading back to your home state.
Yep. So, again, we're going to be having this September 27, 28, Indy and Jersey. And is this a first?
This is definitely a first.
This is a first.
This is a first. We're going to Jersey. We're going to Indy. Coverage will be in Jersey. It'll be you and Matthias handling the coverage duties. No coverage of the Indianapolis Open, but what's more important here is that there are 2 Opens one weekend, and hey, I don't work in Star City Games organized play, but I can imagine this could start being a thing here. 2 Opens on one weekend.
I don't exactly know what the motivation is for doing this. I'm not sure why this got added to the schedule.
It's a secret.
Not privy to those conversations, but if this is the testing groundworks here to see if we can handle 2 opens in one weekend, this could be another big step forward.
I feel like Magic. We're going to have more Magic.
We're going to have a lot more Magic.
Perhaps maybe a little East Coast, West Coast every weekend?
We'll have a little rivalry going.
Yeah, that could be fun. I would enjoy that. I know we don't get to go to the West Coast a ton, so any chance that we have the opportunity to up our West Coast opens, that's always cool.
Yeah, get a little kind of Biggie Tupac sort of rivalry going.
That's like a rap reference, I think?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
But I imagine it was gruesome.
There was a lot of deaths.
Was there
People died under tragic and suspicious circumstances.
Was there a clear-cut winner there?
Everyone kind of lost.
Ah, yes.
No, Puff Daddy won. He's still doing his thing, I guess.
I don't know who that is. I know who P. Diddy is.
He's the guy who mumbles over other rappers' tracks.
And probably gets paid to do so.
Yeah, he gets paid a lot of money to mumble over other people's songs.
He broke it.
He did break it.
He broke it. I'm not very skilled, but I have quite the nice mumble.
Yeah.
And he makes what look to be relatively mediocre clothing.
Imagine there's a guy who wandered around Magic tournaments going up to your game and forcing you to mulligan your hand. That's basically what he's done. It's like, I just want to give you a worse experience. This is just going to be worse. I'm going to make your song, your game, worse.
And I have to pay that person.
And you have to pay that person. They also charge you a lot of money to do this.
I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
How do I say no? Looks like Steve is going to take a mulligan here.
You got to get your own label.
Yeah.
Then you can say no.
Well, fair enough. So game number 3 here will be underway shortly. Boss Sly versus Black Red Devotion. We saw Red with the 3-peat. It got pretty ugly there for a little while. Boss Sly winning the Invitational in Season 2. Then Festus Resendez winning the Standard Open in Columbus. We followed up with Kevin Rand winning in Vegas. And heck, we can even throw Brian Camage in there with Burn in the legacy portion. Red really sliced things up to begin the summer.
And you're starting to see some adaptations to this. You know, Reed Duke is playing main deck Domestication in his mono blue devotion list. Not sure if that's necessarily about beating mono red, but Domestication is very good against that deck. You see Jared here, multiple copies of Drown in Sorrow on his sideboard. Not something you always see.
No Pharika Cures, though. None of those. Boettcher going to play a Temple of Malice to begin the party. Dollinger did keep his 6. He'll take a draw. What's the 1-drop going to be? It's Fire Drink Crusader, your favorite.
It's the best one.
I know you love it. Boettcher does have a second land to play. I think he's just considering which one he wants to play and how he wants to navigate here. He did keep his 7 cards relatively quickly. So here's another copy of Temple of Malice. Let's take a look at the top card. That one's going to the bottom, yes, before passing the turn back.
And if he's doing this instead of using a removal spell on turn 2, this could be a Drown in Sorrow game.
Thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And he certainly gave it some pause as well about how he wanted to navigate things.
Yeah.
Well, there is Nash Zealous. This is a pretty good Drown in Sorrow. Boettcher does have one. It'll be an attack here for 4. Boettcher's going to go down to 16. See, a Blood Crypt, I believe, came off the top of his deck. Just passing the turn back. So no Drown in Sorrow here. You have to imagine at least one removal spell will be played this turn.
Yeah, and in fact, even if Jared has Drown in Sorrow, which he may not necessarily have, he can afford to get a little more greedy here. I mean, he can use one removal spell inside of combat here, have Steven probably play out the remainder of his hand post-combat, and then sweep everything up. You can get better than a 2-for-1 with Drown in Sorrow in this matchup.
And Dollinger treading pretty lightly. Here's another copy of Vassal. Now he's opening himself up to Bile-Blight quite a bit, hoping that Boettcher doesn't have one, but he does. And here is Bile-Blight to take care of both copies of Vassal. So 2 damage will come across here, but a huge play there from Boettcher.
Yeah, Steven took a risk there, and Jared had the answer. And now Steven in a ton of trouble.
There's a Blood Crypt tapped before Boettcher does pass the turn back here. Dollinger can take a draw. You see a Madcap Skills over there in the hand. A bunch of other cards. He's got plenty of spells. The question is, can he actually convert those to win the game?
And this is why I'm not a big fan of Harnessed by Force in the matchup, is these kind of games. Not that Steven necessarily has it in his hand, but Jared's got a pretty high life total here, and Steven has to slog through so many removal spells that Harnessed by Force is unlikely to do very much.
An attack here for 2. Boettcher's going to pass priority, waiting for Dollinger to perhaps make a move with the Titan Strength. A Rebel Belt Maka, maybe a pumping of the Fire Dragon Crusader. And there's a Hero's Downfall to take care of that. So a bit of a beating there, and there will be no Scry, of course, in response to the Titan Strength.
So Steven has mulliganed, And each of the removal spells in Jared's graveyard has gotten 2 cards out of the deal here. So,
You know what they say? Anybody's game.
and it's still anyone's game.
Night Vale Spectre going to show up here. The things that cannot afford to happen to Boss Sly are exactly what you mentioned. Just getting 2 for 1 into the ground.
Yeah.
They can't overcome that.
It's possible his hand didn't really let him do anything else. I mean, if at the third turn, if his hand's just Ash Zealot and Pump spells, there's not a lot to be done.
Yeah. The Bob Light was deadly, as was the hero's downfall. That's just kind of how things go sometimes.
Yep.
You're a relatively all-in deck. There's, of course, a lot of play to the deck. There's some bobbing and weaving to be done, but sometimes your draw doesn't allow for anything else.
Right. There's times where you can't really play around things because you can't beat those cards anyway. It has a lot of that experience.
Rakdos Cackler going to come in here. Boettcher got to untap those 3 lands that he used to cast a Night Vale Spectre last turn. Draws a copy of Grey Merchant of Asphodel. You also see another Spectre in his hand and a Desecration Demon. He's going to start by attacking here for 2. That will come across. Dollinger's going to go down to 18. There will be a Spectre trigger here, so we'll see what Boettcher does fine, and it's a mountain. We're almost in the situation now here for Jared where lands and spells are both good to find.
Either will work.
Yeah, allows him to cast more spells with the lands or cast more spells if he finds spells. So both are good. Jared, for example, this turn, now that he's found a 6th land, can simply play Desecration Demon and leave up Mutavault to block.
And to protect himself from Harness by Force as well.
So he's going to reorganize the mana a little bit here. And there is your 4 mana, so it looks like he is going to deploy the 6/6 fly before passing the turn back here. And as you did mention, he is covered from Harness by Force in numerous ways.
Yeah.
You would think that that threat and style effect is good against Desecration Demon. There are certainly times when it is.
Yeah.
Just not right now. Rakdos Cackler going to get some skills of the Madcap variety. Attack here for 5. Boettcher's going to go down to, it looks like, 9.
Surprised that Jared just didn't double block there with Mutavault plus Desecration Demon.
Me too.
Maybe he's killing him on the way back. Maybe that's the reason not to, but he did have a pretty attractive double block there.
Attack for 6, 7, 8. Dollinger's going to go down to 10. Boettcher going to get a Fire Drink Crusader. Not the best card to find. Especially when you're not going to lose the Desecration Demon in that exchange because of its 6 toughness. I was a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, it's Mutavault for his 2 cards. Seems like a pretty good block for him.
And there's a Grey Merchant. So Boettcher's going to gain 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Up to 16 he goes. And Dollinger will take 7. He goes down to 3. And Steven will untap and take a draw here, but I think this is the last turn of the game he'll get to play.
Yeah. No real risk here, even if Steven has a land and 3 plus 3 effects, it's 9, 11, 14. So even if Steven has some very unlikely sequence of cards, Jared's still fine.
See Jared waiting patiently here as Steven tries to figure out exactly what he can do on this last turn of the game. The one thing to note here is that Boettcher didn't really draw any of his sideboard cards, you know. Of course, he doesn't have any copies for Rika's Cure, didn't find Drown in Sorrow. So, you know, he didn't draw anything special, but his deck just operated as normal, was able to get the job done. You see Steven Dollinger's going to extend the hand, so Jared Boettcher's going to win this match 2 games to 1. Blackguard Devotion takes down Boss Sly.
It's part of the problem with cards like Madcap Skills in this matchup. Post-board, Jared's not really looking to block. If it comes up, like, he'll take his spots to block. What he's trying to do is just kill everything that Steven casts. And so the creature enhancement stuff is very unlikely to work because Jared's play pattern in a lot of these games is going to be land, go with all my mana up, and react to whatever you do. And when your opponent's doing that, cards like Madcap Skills, Dragon's Mantle, they're very hard to use effectively. And you saw that definitely in game number 3.
You can say the same thing about Titan Strength and Rebel Bell Maka as well.
Yeah,
just trying to pick your spots appropriately is really hard to do.
Well, the upside of those cards, at least, is, you know, I have some creatures in play, you have some mana up, I attack you, and I pass, and you go, okay, before damage, I'll Hero's Downfall something. And that's a spot for you to Titan Strength and Rebel Bell Maka and at least Lava Spike with them.
Sure.
The sorcery speed, you know, the main phase creature